Welcome back to 9works TV. Now, of all the different 911 derivatives, think Carrera, Turbo, GT3, Rennsport, arguably the most collectible is the Speedster. Think about it. The Speedster has always had low production numbers, and that fabric roof has meant that they've never really been daily drivers. Now, in terms of the 911, the Speedster started with the 3.2 Carrera Speedster of 1989. However, this video and the topic of this video starts 2 years prior to that, at the Frankfurt Motor Show of 1987, when Porsche revealed this, the 3.2 Speedster Clubsport Prototype. Now, as we know, the Speedster concept starts way before the 911. It was actually with the 356 Speedster. Max Hoffman, famous US importer, approached Ferry Porsche and said, look, if you want to crack America, you need a pared back two-seater open-top sports car. And thus the 356 Speedster was born. The concept was looked at again by Porsche in the late 80s when the company wanted to instill that philosophy onto its legendary 911 sports car. Now, what a lot of people don't know is the Speedster was initially designed for the 964 platform. That was the era of 911 that was introduced in 1989 to replace this, the G-bodied. Ben Dimpson told me that on a previous video. You can check my archive for more details on that. But at the last minute, the Speedster concept was pulled forward from the 964 platform and onto the G-Series platform, allegedly to have one last increase of sales. So Porsche's 911 Speedster lineage starts right here with this Speedster Clubsport Prototype. It was first revealed to the world at the Frankfurt Automotive Show in 1987, and it really does instill that original Porsche Speedster philosophy of being a lightweight, pared back and no-nonsense sports car. The Speedster was presented at Frankfurt as a trial car to gauge public reaction, something Porsche liked to do every 2 years at the time. For reference, in 1983 the company presented a 959 prototype in Frankfurt, then in 85 the 944 Cabriolet, this Speedster in 1987 and the crazy Panamericana concept in 1989. All but the Panamericana reached production, and you can learn more about that car from a previous video here. Anyway, Porsche said at the time its intention was for the incoming 911 Speedster to be available in 3 variations: a base model with its dainty wraparound screen, double bubble plastic cover and thin unlined roof. This, incidentally, would be the variant which made production. Porsche, however, also explored offering the Speedster with a hardtop roof featuring a heated rear screen, its intention being for winter use. And the third option was the one you see here, the Clubsport. It looks rather different to the production version that eventually hit showrooms in 1989, chiefly because of this plastic cover. As you can see, this prototype is devoid of the windscreen that all Speedsters and all road cars need to have, just replaced with this very tiny plastic screen. The Speedster Clubsport was intended for hardcore drivers who wish to participate in club sports competition, much like the original 356 Speedster of the 1950s. That small wraparound wind deflector was part of a one-piece plastic top which enveloped the entire cabin, with only the tip of the driver's seat, as well as the driver's head, protruding out of it. Of course, this setup wasn't at all street legal, but Porsche championed the adaptability of the concept by stating the top could be swapped out for the roadworthy Speedster windscreen in just a few screws, and using only the tools supplied in the conventional Porsche toolkit. In reality, removing the Clubsport lid is a 2-person job, plus there's the question of storage, but there's no denying the merit to Porsche's thinking here. The Speedster was some 70 kilos lighter than the 911 Cabriolet of the time, Porsche otherwise relying on the usual 911 recipe. The reason is, and the reason why the rest of this car in terms of its bumpers and body looks vaguely familiar, is because, well, this is based on a G-Series 911, a 3.2 Carrera. Narrow body, of course, the production 3.2 Speedster, over 2,000 of them would be wide body, only 171 mimicked that narrow body G-Series 911 look. The motor in the back is standard 3.2 Carrera, so that's naturally aspirated, of course, flat 6, 230 horsepower. If you look inside, you can actually see, with this being a 1987 car, the G50 gearbox, where reverse is out and left. So in terms of basic body, engine and running gear, Absolutely all of this is G-Series 3.2 Carrera. Well look, the view out the front of a 911 Speedster is pretty different from the rest of the 911 lineup, mainly because the windscreen is shorter and more steeply raked than normal Carrera derivatives. But even compared to a production Speedster, I've never sat in a 911 that's just so damn bizarre, to be honest with you. The windscreen, as I mentioned, is totally gone, replaced by this extremely short and very steeply raked wraparound plastic screen. I can see out the front, but the gun barrel front fenders are pretty much hidden, so my reference point as a driver that I'm used to for other G-Series cars are gone. And likewise with that mirror. Incidentally, although this is very kind of skinny looking compared to the later 964 teardrop mirrors, that is definitely where the inspiration for those mirrors came from. But, and even with this being a kind of see-through plastic, those exterior mirrors really are largely superfluous. Now certainly from here it doesn't feel like 911 Speedster as we know it, and in actual fact it reminds me more of the 550 Spider or 718. And again, that kind of really is what this car is based on, or its inspiration comes from. You definitely get that feeling sitting here. Invoking the magic of the 550 was indeed part of Porsche's thinking here. Its competition success, twinned with the popularity of the pared back street car in the 356, arguably put Porsche on the map in America, which was for years the company's biggest market. It's no coincidence then that this open-top project was developed in the 1980s under the tutelage of then CEO Peter Schutz, who, of course, was American. Right, as you can see, the guys have actually managed to get the roof off, which, as you can see on the floor there, granted the top is very different to the fabric roof that the G-bodied Speedster would end up using, but the mechanism to take that off appears to be very similar to what we know as the G-bodied Speedster when it came to production a couple of years later on. In terms of where it hooks on at the front, because there's no windscreen, there's also no windscreen wipers, and so where the windscreen wipers are usually placed, that's where the front of the cover hooks onto. Nice and easy. Finished in pearlescent white with matching Fuchs wheels, the Speedster Clubsport wowed crowds at the 1987 Frankfurt Motor Show and contributed to over 2,000 orders for the first 911 Speedster to sign off the G-Series era in 1989. But the Clubsport itself never made production. Alas, the final production G-Series Speedster looked fairly different to this, didn't it? And it took on what we now know is a traditional Speedster aesthetic. What the Clubsport Prototype did do though was instill that Speedster ethos, in principle, onto the 911 body. And as we discussed at the start of the video, it's a rich legacy that still remains in the 911 lineup 32 years later.